Hello everyone and welcome to Chapter 4 in our management course. And Chapter 4 is over global management, managing across borders. This chapter covers the importance of globalization in today's markets, which is the rise of the global village, of one big market, of both worldwide mega firms and mini firms. The chapter will also describe the characteristics of the successful international manager, why and how companies expand internationally, and some of the economic and political legal differences between countries. This chapter describes the barriers of free trade and the major organizations that are promoting trade. Finally, in the chapter, I will describe some of the cultural differences the student may encounter in becoming an international manager in today's market. Alright, this chapter is broken up into 5 portions. 4.1 is over globalization, the collapse of time and distance. And after completing this part of the chapter, you should be able to answer the question, what 3 important developments of globalization will probably affect me? Section 2 is you and international management. After completing this part of the chapter, you should be able to answer the major question of why learn about international management and what characteristics the successful international manager. Part 3, why and how companies expand internationally, you should be able to then complete the question to yourself, why do companies expand internationally and how do they do it? After completing section 4, which is the world of free trade, regional economic cooperation, you should be able to answer the major question, what are barriers to free trade and what major organizations and trading blocs promote trade? And the last part of chapter 4, which is section 5, is over the importance of understanding cultural differences. After reading and following everything along in the part 4.5, you should be able to answer the question, what are the principal areas of cultural differences? So if we take a look at your chapter and follow along as we go over the major components of chapter 4, and we'll start with 4.1, which is over globalization, the collapse of time and distance. We're going to answer, what is globalization? Globalization is the trend of the world economy toward becoming more independent. In today's market, both time and distance have virtually collapsed, as reflected in the 3 important developments given below. The rise of the global village and electronic commerce, or what's better known as e-commerce. The second one is the trend of the world becoming one big market, or a global economy. And the third is the rise of both mega firms and internet-enabled mini firms. Now, you may not have heard the term global village before. Now, global village refers to the shrinking of time and space as air travel and electronic media have made it much easier for people of the globe to communicate with one another. Now, one big factor in this obviously is the internet, which is a worldwide computer-linked network of networks, and that allows us to get that communication with one another to a lot faster and definitely in a lot easier mode of what business was able to do prior to the blow up of the internet in business. So you can definitely thank the World Wide Web, which turned the internet into a mass medium for us to be able to use. And this internet usage has led us to some other new terms which are called e-commerce, which the full term of that is electronic commerce, which this is just the buying and selling of products and services throughout computer networks. If you've never bought anything online, welcome to 2015. It's time to try it out. People have their hang-ups about it sometimes due to security, and we see security breaches, but for the most part, for the general consumer, the ease of using e-commerce definitely saves us time, and sometimes you can't put a price on the time that you save. And look at that staggering number. U.S. retail e-commerce sales were estimated at $48.2 billion back in 2011 in the 3rd quarter alone. And that's just grown and grown since then. Therefore, thanks to the old interweb, most anything you need is now at your fingertips, and the e-commerce is not going to slow down anytime soon. Now we'll take a look at our one big world market. We just call that the global economy. The global economy is the increasing tendency of the economies of the world to interact with one another as one market instead of many national individual markets. Now with this bringing together of markets as one market, we obviously have pros and cons to this. And some of the positive effects of global economy is with an increased income, consumers in other regions of the world become more interested in our national products. And the growth of jobs and income in other countries results in the growth of jobs and income here in the U.S. Now, some negative effects of a global economy is financial crises throughout the world helped spark a housing and credit bubble, leading to the 2007-2009 Great Recession that most of us probably experienced. And others, well-paying American jobs have been moved offshore as companies seek lower labor costs. So that is a definite negative of a global economy. Now let's look at our cross-border business, which is the rise of mega mergers and many firms worldwide. So this global market that we've been experiencing over the last several years which is obviously driven by electronic information, has fueled the growth of two opposite kinds of businesses. Mega mergers operate worldwide. Certain industries such as oil, automobiles, telecommunications are not suited to being mid-sized, so companies try to become bigger and cross-border. And you might know some of these such as Porsche targeting Volkswagen, AT&T targeting T-Mobile. That's just an example of that. And many firms operating worldwide. This is our other kind of business that has come from this. And many firms are, small companies can get started a lot more easily using a website, which eliminates the larger companies' competitive advantages over them. And small businesses can maneuver faster, which gives them an advantage over larger companies as well. Now let's take some of this information here from 4.1 and let's look at a quick question and see how best you can answer that. Jillian sells her art through her own website and her Etsy store. She receives questions from many different countries. Jillian, therefore, is engaged in what? E-commerce, global trading, counter trading, or embargo? Obviously, the answer is e-commerce based on that question. So if you answered A, e-commerce, great job. All right, let's move to our next section, 4.2, which is over you and international management. Now, studying international management prepares you to work with foreign customers or partners, with foreign suppliers, for a foreign firm in the United States, or for a U.S. firm overseas. Now, as we mentioned in a previous chapter, that working overseas is an advantage to you in your management career. Foreign experience demonstrates independence, resourcefulness, and the ability to be a little bit ahead of some competitor that you may be experiencing in a job interview because of that international management experience that you might have got. So you might ask, well, why learn about international management other than the fact that I could have a competitive advantage? Well, international management is management that oversees the conduct of operations in or with organizations in foreign countries. We have two types here. A multinational corporation, this is a term we should definitely look at. A multinational enterprise is a business firm with operations in several countries. I'm sure you can think of many examples here. And a multinational organization is a non-profit organization with operations in several countries. So we have multinational corporation and multinational organization. Now, whether you travel overseas or not, the global market will come to you in one form or another. You may deal with foreign customers or partners. A foreign company may be a partner in a joint venture, and success may depend on understanding each other's cultures. You may also deal with foreign employees or suppliers. You may have to purchase raw materials, components, or services from a foreign supplier. And foreign practices may be different from what you are accustomed to here in the U.S. You may work for a foreign firm in the U.S. The outlook of managers above and below you may be different from yours. And finally, you may work for an American firm outside the U.S. or for a foreign one. Most big U.S. corporations have overseas subsidiaries. Now, there are three types of attitudes predominant amongst managers when talking about international management. And the first of those three types of attitudes that are predominant amongst our management styles for international manager are ethnocentric managers, saying we know best. They believe that their native country, culture, or language and behavior are superior to all others. Now, these managers believe they can export the practices of their home countries to anywhere in the world. Ethnocentrism might also be called parochialism. That is a narrow view in which people see things solely through their own perspective regardless of one other's perspective. The next type of managerial attitude is the polycentric managers. Now, these managers believe that native managers in the foreign offices best understand native personnel and practices, so the home office should leave them alone. And they just call that attitude like a they know best type attitude. Lastly, we have the geocentric managers. Now, geocentric managers accept that there are differences and similarities between home and foreign personnel and practices, and they should use whatever techniques are most effective for the business. Now, this view takes more work, but the payoff can be far greater than any of the either two. You might think of the geocentric managers as the what's best is what's effective regardless of origin. Now let's see if you can apply that information into this question here. Alvin accepts that differences and similarities exist between home and foreign personnel and practices, and that the company should use whatever techniques are most effective. Alvin therefore can be described as what type of manager, or what managerial attitude. Hopefully you chose C, geocentric, since the definition is right there in the question. So hopefully you chose C. Great job everyone. Now let's move on to the next section.